3 sentences in. Someone bangs on my back door at 2 in the morning, bright as a flashlight and furious like they were born mad. And when I tell them they can't use the hot tub because my property, my rules, she loses it in front of everybody, yelling a string of cruel things that cut to the bone, then gets in her van and drives right through our fence. That's where it starts: the tires, the splintering wood, the hot tub light going out like someone cut the world in half, and you don't get over it. Not really. You learn to live around the scar. My name's Alex Harper. I moved into the little cul-de-sac on Prairie Ridge because I wanted quiet. I wanted a yard my kid could run in someday. I wanted a place that felt like it belonged to me. You know, the usual American dream stuff that seemed reasonable until it wasn't. I'd kept to myself, mowed my grass on Saturdays, smiled at neighbors at the mailbox, paid my dues, and then the night Brenda Cole knocked like she owned the place. Only her name wasn't Brenda. Call her Rita Nash, different name, same temper, same sense that she had more claim to everyone else's space than they did. They came as a group, 3 of them, like they'd planned it. I'd had a couple friends over, nothing wild, a little music, beer in plastic cups, the jets on low, and the knock came heavy. I opened the door, and Rita was there in a hot pink tracksuit, mascara running, voice full of heat. "Let us in," she demanded. That's the line that got us. People can say please in 100 different ways, but there's only one way to step into someone's yard and behave like you own it. I said no, plain and quiet, and for a second it was like she'd never learned that word before. She called me names loud, ugly things aimed at making me smaller. She accused me of being mean, of being selfish. Then she said something worse, something meant to strip me down to skin and history and make me ashamed, and she said it loud enough for the whole street to hear. I'm not going to repeat the word, because it doesn't need air, but it landed like a punch. My chest tightened. My hands went cold. I remember thinking, of all the ways a person can be hurt, being called less than human by your neighbor is a funny kind of violence. The cops came because someone called them neighbors, sleeping through it, and they arrived with the hollow calm of people who've seen too much and hope this is just another night. Rita's van was idling at the curb when she stormed off, headlights like twin eyes, and my fence stood between me and the road like a last line of decency. She reversed, then rammed forward, with snapping, a cloud of dust, and the van disappeared through my backyard like someone driving a message. The police took notes. They looked at me like they needed to calculate fault, but the first officer, his creditor, wrote down what he saw: the splintered posts, the skid marks, the trembling of my neighbor's hands as she handed over her porch camera footage. Still, nothing felt obvious. I filed a claim, patched the fence as best I could, and that should have been the end of it. But it never is. It turned into layers of checks and balances that don't check for anything human. HOA letters, fines, a notice about nuisance behavior, emails that use the phrase community standards like a cudgel. They sent me a violation for the condition of the fence, as if my broken board were the crime, and the act of driving a vehicle through someone else's property was a neighborhood dispute to be mediated over coffee. The irony's not lost. I had to pay to fix what someone else broke, and I had to be polite about it. Meanwhile, Rita and her friends turned a backyard incident into a public story. Social posts, whispered takes, people choosing sides like they were picking teams at recess. What saved me, what shifted the frame, was a neighbor named Luke Jameson, a quiet man with a graying beard who ran a small landscaping business. He showed me the doorbell footage before the cops did anything, and in that tiny, grainy file was the truth. Rita's van, deliberate, the way she stared straight ahead like she was proving something. We sat on my couch with that clip, Luke with his coffee, me with a legal pad full of numbers, and for the first time in weeks I felt less alone. He said, "You're not crazy, Alex. This is what happened." That was all I needed to start fighting instead of just cleaning up. So we fought. Not in the streets, not with fists, with cameras and affidavits and a lawyer I could barely afford, but who smelled like justice and coffee and knew how the system worked. He told me to file countersuits, to preserve evidence, to keep my mouth off social media, all the things that feel cold until you realize the warmth of rightness sometimes needs paper to stay warm. We gathered timestamps, screenshots, and witness statements: the old couple across the lane, the teenager who'd been walking his dog, and recorded the van's license plate, the HOA board member who'd privately told me she'd seen Rita's temper before. Each paper was a small pushback against the story that had been written about me. They retaliated. Late one night, someone spray-painted liar across the temporary fence, the paint dripping like a bad truth. That footage, captured by a new camera Luke installed for me, was the kind of small, ugly proof that swings public opinion in slow, noisy ways. The HOA called an emergency meeting, and for the first time the whole street sat in a room with fluorescent lights and cheap coffee and watched my life play on a projector. The van, the words, the vandalism, and you could feel the room shift. Faces that had been neutral turned sheepish. Faces that had been with Rita looked away. At the meeting, Rita sat like a woman waiting for a verdict and then stood to speak. And God, she had lines ready, words polished to turn hurt into righteousness. He provoked us, she said, voice steady. He's been reckless with his guests. It was theater. I could see the script. I stood up. I told the room the truth, the slow version with the breath between sentences, and somewhere between the van footage and the teenager's witness, someone in the back murmured, not what she said. The board table shifted. The violation was tabled. But nobody gets a trophy for being right in these fights, only a stack of receipts and a memory that sits heavy. The court stuff dragged. Depositions are like watching paint dry while someone asks why you used a blue mug at breakfast, except those questions matter. We learned about how small communities manage power, how rumors become policy, how people with time and social reach can weaponize civility. What kept me awake was less the legal cost, though it was real, and more the sense that my life had been rearranged, that the yard I'd loved had become a stage. We won some motions, lost others, and the final ruling was messy. Damages awarded, a public letter of apology whispered into the record, and a community shaken enough to clean the edges of its own behavior. There was no cinematic victory, no parade, just a quiet weekend where my fence held again and the kids next door rode bicycles through a gap of sunlight. What changed me wasn't the judgment, it was the way I saw people afterward. Luke's steady presence taught me what neighborliness could be. The teenager who recorded the plate reminded me there are small, brave acts all around. The HOA board's eventual humility showed me institutions can be nudged. But I also learned to carry scars with less shame. When my son's 5 now, sleeping in the next room, asks why we have cameras, I tell him, so we know the story is true. He nods, because kids have that trust that we try to polish away. I'm telling you this because it's easy to look at a broken fence and write a headline. HOA chaos, or Karen runs amok, or whatever shorthand the internet enjoys. The truth is thicker. People hurt each other for reasons that aren't simple: fear, pride, jealousy, the small tyranny of wanting to belong, and sometimes the mechanism to fix it is ugly, bureaucratic, slow. Yet moments of human kindness stick. To Luke's coffee, the teenage neighbor's video, the elderly couple bringing over sandwiches after the van hit the yard because they felt sorry for my dog, who'd hidden under the couch for 2 days. If there's a moral here, it's not a clean one. Protect your home, but protect your humanity. Put up a camera, know your rights. Get a friend with a van who can lift a post, but also remember to listen, to call people out when they cross the line without turning into the same kind of person who breaks lines to begin with. We don't become less by standing firm. We become something else entirely if we choose to respond with the same small cruelties. I could have answered hate with hate, and we'd all still be standing in splinters. So tell me, which part of this would you have handled differently? Did I sit on my hands too long, or did I act too quickly? Who in your neighborhood surprised you? The Luke, the teenager, the board member who finally did the right thing, and who disappointed you? Drop a comment. Tell the world what justice looks like from your porch, and if you've ever had a fence driven through your life, share how you fixed the pieces. If enough people tell their stories, maybe we'll learn how to guard our yards without losing the neighborhoods we love.